there's ceremony, and there's a nuance to this ritual. It's not just the cheese, right? Like obviously, right? Like I'm not going to get sick, or I'm not going to be like sustained off of this.
I might get sick.
It's a challenge. Right?
Chester Charleston is
he wants
not
me to accept his tutorial.
He's doing a split.
Well, I can't really see his eyes anyway. He's got kind of like a lucha libre mask, and he's sitting cross-legged with his cargo shorts on.
Very majestic.
So clearly, you guys have never heard of the Nepalese royal family curse.
I have.
No, not at all.
No. And it actually just came, it was 2001, so that was 17 years ago. That's a long time ago.
That's a long time ago
17
in 2018
years
terms.
Since 2001.
Yeah.
According to the legend, about 200 years ago, Prithvi Narayan Shah was the initial founder of the Nepalese royal dynasty, the royal kingdom. He started by making conquest of smaller areas around him and kind of developing, how you do.
Right.
You take over the local areas.
And then you look at your neighbor's plot and you go, I can kill my neighbor.
Well, first you got to be like, hey, if I get into some beef, you got my back?
Yeah. Are you cool?
And the guy's like, nah. You're like, well, I'll kick your ass. Okay, yeah, fine. All right. And that's how you start a kingdom. You get everyone to say, I got your back. So everyone said that they had his back. And this guy was the king, quote unquote, for a little while. And he was walking through the forest one day. He came across a man named...
The king walked back then?
Oh, yeah. The king was walking through the woods one day, and he came across a holy man, a yogi named Goraknath. Goraknath.
Goraknath.
And this man was believed to have supernatural powers. He was like kind of a mystic forest man of the area.
Forest yogi.
About 200 years ago. So the king offered this man a piece of curd. The man accepted it. Goraknath.
Was it bean curd like tofu, or
we're gonna
was
go
it
with
something?
cheese?
I was actually wondering that.
It fits it's probably bean, honestly, if we're thinking about it.
You don't
but
know.
Let's go cheese. It says curd.
It's a Wisconsin cheese curd.
It's a curd. It's an
Like
ancient curd
the
from
squeaky-
200 years ago.
the squeaky one?
Use your imagination. He offers the man the curd. The man takes the curd, chews it up in his
Offered the man the curd is
The
the
guy-
favorite sentence I've ever heard.
Man one goes, you want the curd? Man two goes, I want the curd.
Hook me up with
yeah.
that curd, brother.
So man 2 takes the curd. He takes the curd, he chews it up, and he says, I'm going to spit this back out. I want you to catch it in your mouth and eat it.
What?
To the king.
Are they in a frat? This is like
Got him!
like
frat boys.
Hellenistic row. Is it?
He offered to spank him, and then he made him pay him for
He'd
it.
carry a Bing cherry in his butt for 12 meters.
That sounds
Drink
really
a whole handle
specific.
in 5 minutes.
So he spits the curd out, and the king refuses. The king says, "No, that's gross as shit. I'm not in on that."
Did it just hit him in the face? Or
It
did he
actually,
dodge it?
no. It specifies the curd dribbled onto the king's 10 toes. He spit it out
All
onto
10.
his feet.
That was just,
Just
a long...
slid across all of them.
It should have just hit 1 or 2 toes. It didn't have to hit all 10.
So he the king was repulsed by this, right? But the yogi was like, you know what? I curse you. I
Why?
curse you because he had the audacity to refuse the chewed up curd from a forest man.
Fuck you, Forest Yogi.
You guys are prudes, all right? The amount
Why
of
would
weird
you say
shit
that?
you put in your
looked right
fucking
at me and
mouth.
you pointed at me.
The amount of weird shit you guys put in your mouths, and
How
you're gonna
dare
tell
you.
me that like a little bit of cheese in some weird like yogi's mouth is like way too weird for you.
That you've never met before.
Yeah, no.
This man is the only one that's earned my respect.
Thank you.
Stranger danger.
We're
200
talking-
years ago, you're safe.
Unbelievable.
All right, cheese from another man's mouth, safest thing you can eat.
You're saying
That sounds like a thing you would say. Like cheese from another man's mouth.
let me
Like
just
cheese from another man's
You
mouth.
ignore this,
So
you
go
have no
the
honor.
days of our lives.
You must accept this truth. Like cheese from another man's mouth.
let me just posit this, okay? Infectious diseases are communicable from the mouth. So basically, you
In
get
the butt.
everything. You get the entire profile of this man and his current infections spitting onto.
He's a holy man. He's a yogi.
You goddamn right I am.
Takes care of himself.
That does. There's no scientific
No,
backing
there's-
in what you just said.
no.
There.
This is a natural person, and they are eating
Anyway.
some cheese, and they're
All right,
offering it
I've
to
seen
him
pictures
in their
of
own
like
special
ancient
way.
yogis, and I never thought, wow, they got great teeth.
So he curses the king. He curses the king. He says, in 10 years, your entire dynasty will fall apart. Your family will fall apart. I curse you. And the king, realistically, understandably, was like, that's a little harsh. That's a little much.
Wow.
That seems a
no
little
chill,
much.
man.
Maybe give me, if you were going to let me know ahead of time, then I might have done it.
Like,
I didn't
eat
know,
this cheese
I didn't know
or this happens.
this happens. Right. I didn't know that was what was at stake. So anyway,
he goes, "Do I get one mulligan?"
Can I get
leave my forest, he said with a spray of curd. So the king was like, all right, fuck it. So he leaves. So 10 generations.
So cheese.
Exactly. So 10 generations pass, but the 9th and 10th are in
flux.
They are alive at the same time. The king was the 9th generation, King Birendra. His queen was Aishwara, and his son was Prince Dipendra.
They had a nice little.
From the land of the easy names.
Dhirendra. I'm sure I'm butchering it. Obviously, as we do on Fort Fritz, I don't speak Nepalese or whatever it is that
You're
they
so fucking
speak.
uncultured.
I know. I'm
Likewise.
sorry.
Get it together.
I feel like a piece of shit. Anyway, so the king and his son, the prince, are both very well liked. They're both extremely popular members of the royal family. They are well educated. They're public figures. And then tragedy strikes in 2001. Prince Dipendra, depending upon how you're
Mispronouncing it.
It's a snipe.
Enters the Narahanti royal palace in the Nepalese monarchy and murders 10 members of his family and wounds 5 others.
Damn.
During a party, which is apparently a monthly thing. They party monthly, which is badass.
monthly party.
It's like how they do it in the
That's
monthly
what they
murder
call it.
party.
Yeah.
Like just like a stabbing, like with a knife or
with guns.
Okay.
Go with several guns.
Okay.
Let's put it right here as the first point of like mystery. 4 large guns. All right, 3 large guns and 1 handgun. Let's say. So this is a prince of a royal family, well liked, intelligent, educated,
and then 10 members of this family
murdered
murdered
in a party.
And the sad thing is that they would have been murdered if more of them had guns. That's
So it's interesting that you bring that up because there's significant stories about the security detail on staff that night. This is the Nepalese royal family. There were other dudes with guns there that were supposed to keep the other, because they have problems with the Maoists. There's issues, there's political turmoil at the time, right? The security detail on staff that night were trained members of the military. These men were the fucking secret service of the Nepalese like royal family, right? Surrounded by these people, the man managed to kill King Birendra, Queen Aishwara, Prince Nirajan, Princess Shruti, his only sister, Princess Shanti, Princess Sharanda. So these are other siblings of the other members of the family. I guess they get royal titles. Kumar Kadaga and Princess Jayanti, as well as Prince Dipendra himself, because he died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound following the attack, is what we'll say. So Dipendra died essentially 3 days later. He was in a coma. He was crowned king during that time.
Wow.
During the 3 days that he was in a coma by his uncle, Gayanedra.
Was it just like a ceremonial, you're now king and
Yes.
you're probably going to die kind of thing?
So his uncle, released the official story from the Nepalese royal family saying that an automatic weapon was discharged.
Automatic weapon, Jesus.
An automatic weapon was discharged accidentally at a party, and that several members were dead, and that turmoil was happening, and Gayendra, the uncle, was going to see us through this, right? So he had the dying prince / assailant crowned king, but then conspicuously, the royal doctor was barred from attending Prince Dipendra's bedside at the hospital. For 3 days, this man was supposed to attend him medically to like give fucking, to resuscitate him or to give him treatment for gunshot wounds and etc. It was hospital staff only. 3 days. He was pronounced dead after the 3rd day, immediately rushed from the hospital to a funeral pyre. No autopsy.
A funeral pyre?
No.
They burned his ass in 2001?
Oh, it's Nepalese royal family shit, man. That's how they do.
That doesn't explain what I just said.
They probably burned people in Nepal.
Yeah.
Probably.
Old Dipendra. He's dependable.
Very dependable.
Until he massacred his whole family. Allegedly.
Allegedly.
So a 2-man committee comprising of several other men who I'm going to butcher their names, so I won't even bother, but they're like representative of the Justice Department in Nepal, carried out a week-long investigation into the massacre. The investigation concluded after interviewing more than 100 people, including eyewitnesses and palace officials, that Dipendra had carried out the massacre. A large number of critics, Nepalese, both inside of Nepal and abroad, disputed the official report because many facts reported by the investigation seemed to contradict each other. One sticking, I guess, eyewitness quote was, of the very popular Dipendra, he can give up the throne for his sake of love, but he can never do this kind of thing. So one of the stories put forward of why he would have done this was that he intended to marry a woman who was of unsavory, I guess, quality to the royal family.
A widower, or
no, she was like royalty, but she wasn't the right kind of royalty. She was like from a disputing clan,
or caste.
Yeah. That had like relatives in another country and stuff. It wasn't as like royal as she should have been. She wasn't like perfect. But he was like, you know what? I don't care. There was a rich family, but it wasn't like royalty, like appropriate for him to marry. So he said, I don't care. I want to marry her anyway. And they told him, well, you're going to give up the throne if you do that. You're going to have to do that as a regular person.
They would have to abdicate the
correct.
The throne.
So that was kind of the contention point, and that's what they pinned it on. They said, okay, well, he was upset because he wasn't able to marry this woman, and that quote came out from that person. He can give up the throne for his sake of love, but he can never do this kind of thing. Meaning that several people who knew him.
So, are you saying he could do anything for love?
But he won't do that.
But he wouldn't do that.
Oh, jeez.
He won't do that with several guns at his own family's party. So the overall conception of him was that this was a man who wouldn't do something like this, right? Like he would have rather have like just forsaken everything than kill his entire family.
So people say it's got to be a curse.
Bullshit. People say it's bullshit, first of all. So there are several, I guess, interpretations of what happened, but you got to look at like who benefits, right? Like whenever something like this happens, everyone in the line of succession was wiped out except for this uncle, Gayendran. Again, I'm sorry. The guy was a scumbag, so I don't care if I mispronounce his name. But anyway, he
deserved it.
Yeah, fuck that guy.
Several
had it coming. Holy got it coming.
Several inconsistencies with the report of what happened that night. First of all, the guy was a well-to-do guy. How did he know how to operate it was like a SPAS 12-gauge automatic shotgun, an HK MP5 submachine gun, Glocks, and all this other shit. While there's security, a full security detail standing around
inside job
that would allow this 10 people to be massacred inside of this party, right? So another inconsistency was he eventually succumbed to his wounds 3 days later due to a self-inflicted gunshot wound. But it was on the wrong side. It was one of those wrong side things. He was right-handed. It was on the left side of his head.
Oh, so
and there were two bullets.
Oh, weird.
According to eyewitnesses, there were 2 holes in the side of his head. But again, unable to be verified due to the fact that they rushed his body immediately from... after barring the royal doctor from seeing him for 3 days, immediately to a funeral pyre, no autopsy. Sounds like a setup, right? So people think it was due to the fact that India was putting pressure at the time. We're going to get busted for this shit. India was putting pressure on the time of the Nepalese government to take defense contracts, to be like, hey, we're going to defend you, buy our defense stuff. And the king of Nepal was like, we don't need your shit. I'm going to buy some stuff from China. And then they basically, the eyewitnesses around the place say that the hallmarks of what the operation looked very similar to the Indian research and analysis wing. They're basically the Indian CIA. Had some hand in essentially performing what would be a coup, right?
Yeah.
So,
MI6.
Right. They created this weird narrative of this man killing his whole family due to love or whatever, and then they put him essentially out of the way, and they have this uncle who is now the king of Nepal, the last in the line of succession, and he reigns, quote unquote, for 5 years until finally the public of Nepal comes out and says, you know what, you're not the king. You have no royal blood. We want someone who's actually the royal line.
We can do that?
Well, Nepal did.
Yeah, Nepal did. Not us.
Damn it.
You got balls like Nepal?
Nice.
Answer him, Mandetti.
I mean, I don't even have moves like Jagger, so I don't have balls like Nepal.
So they ended up basically instituting a republic. They said, you know what, you're not the king, and there is no more king. We're doing a monarch. We're doing away with the monarchy. We are going to have a republic now. And they switched. They are now a republic, essentially, in Nepal after the 2001 Nepalese massacre. 5 years of the uncle reigning, and then in 2006 there was an official ousting of this man. Some say due to actually the fact that he refused to observe this very specific like religious ritual where they would go to offer prayer to what would be like the goddess of the state, almost like the one who watches over everything,
The president.
and he was making kind of a protest to the point that the monarchy had lost some of its teeth in that they had given a lot of power to parliament and stuff like that. So he was saying, well, I'm not even the king. I'm going to go to this thing as like a commoner, and I'll just show up whenever I want and give an offering. And everybody was like, it's the curse again. So if you think about it, it's the guy who got killed, the king, was the 9th. The prince who, quote unquote, shot himself on the wrong side of his head with 2 bullets was the 10th, which would have fulfilled the curse of Garankh. And then the 11th was this guy who technically was never king and was ousted. And that's the end of the Nepalese monarchy. They are now a republic. They have fucking like political parties and they vote and shit like that. And the curse of that man came true. So eat the cheese.
Eat the cheese.
Well,
Eat the cheese. I guess that's the at the end of the day, we all need to eat the cheese.
Eat the goddamn cheese. At least take a nibble of the cheese. What's the difference?
I don't want the rule evangelist to go down.